In the late 80s, Richard Marx was one of the most played artists on the radio. Songs like Should Have Known Better, Endless Summer Nights, and the famous ballad Right Here Waiting topped the Billboard charts, making him an absolute sensation. What many people don't know is that Right Here Waiting was written as a love letter to his then girlfriend, the actress Cynthia Rhodes, while she was filming in South Africa. Richard didn't originally intend to release the song. It was something personal, a way to cope with the longing since he couldn't get a visa to visit her. But the song, so intimate and heartfelt, became one of the biggest hits of his career and one of the most famous ballads of all time. Before reaching that level of fame, something significant happened in Richard's life. In 1981, when he was just 18 years old and still in high school, he received an unexpected call from none other than Lionel Richie. The singer had heard a demo of Richard's through a friend and was impressed by the young man's talent. Not only did Lionel encourage Richard to move to Los Angeles after finishing high school, but he also spoke with Richard's parents, assuring them that their son had a promising future in music. With Lionel's push, Richard took his first step toward becoming one of the big names in the 80s and 90s pop music. And his journey was just beginning. Like many artists from that era, Richard has somewhat faded from the global spotlight. And today, I'm going to tell you a bit about this great icon and where he is now. If you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you always know when a new video is out. Without further ado, let's get started. Born in 1963 in Chicago, Richard Marx had music running through his veins from the very beginning. His parents, Ruth and Dick Marx, were jazz musicians who also ran a jingle company, meaning music was everywhere in the house. Young Richard watched his father with admiration, seeing him go to work with a passion that left a lasting impression. Love what you do, no matter the pressures. It was as a child, singing a song by the Monkees at school, that Richard decided on the path he wanted to follow. I guess somewhere in that brief 2.5 minutes, something inside me clicked, because I never lived another single second wondering what I wanted to do with my life, he recalls. During his teenage years, Richard started writing his own songs, and by high school, he had already recorded a demo with 4 tracks. This is where fate stepped in. Through a series of connections, his recordings made their way into the hands of none other than Lionel Richie. Imagine being a young musician and receiving an unexpected call from one of the biggest names in music. That's exactly what happened. Lionel praised Richard's songs and gave him a piece of advice that would change everything. If you want a real career, you need to leave Chicago and head to Los Angeles. He followed Lionel's advice and in 1981 set out of the city where musical dreams come to life. Little by little, Richard started making a name for himself as a backing vocalist on some of the biggest recordings of the time. Remember Lionel Richie's 1983 hit All Night Long All Night? In the verse, Tamboli desei de moya, hey Jumbo Jumbo, it's Richard singing along with 2 other vocalists. He also appeared on Whitney Houston's debut album in 1985, replacing Teddy Pendergrass in the duet Hold Me after Teddy was unable to perform due to a car accident. According to the New York Post, Richard also made an appearance on the live version of Barbra Streisand and Barry Gibb's Guilty. Barry had forgotten to sing a line, so Richard was brought in to imitate him in the studio, singing in falsetto. It oughta be illegal. This young talent also stood out as a songwriter. During a session with Kenny Rogers, Richard heard Kenny mention that he needed more songs for his upcoming 1984 album, What About Me? Determined to impress, Richard went home that night and in his small apartment wrote Crazy. At the next session, he gathered the courage to show the song to Kenny. To his surprise, the star loved it and decided to record it. Crazy went on to become a #1 hit on the country charts, opening even more doors for the young songwriter.
I guess I'm crazy.
But despite all this talent, the road wasn't easy for Richard. His first solo demo was rejected by several record labels, with some even suggesting he pursue another career. However, his perseverance paid off. He kept pushing forward, and eventually, Manhattan Records recognized the talent in front of them. The inspiration for Richard's first single, Don't Mean Nothing, came during an ordinary moment. While driving, a guitar riff started playing in his mind. Slowly, the melody took shape, along with the lyrics, until he had the complete song.
No, it don't mean nothing, no victim, no crime.
In 1987, his debut album was released, and he quickly exploded on the radio. It was an instant success, making him famous overnight. He describes that moment with remarkable humility. It really was a case of me going into a 7-Eleven on Tuesday and no one knowing or caring who I was. And the next day, I walked into an LA mall and had 50 people following me. It was such a life lesson in that. It happened so fast. That debut album was powerful. It produced 4 top 3 Billboard hits, including the ballad Hold On to the Nights. Richard felt confident with tracks like Endless Summer Nights and Should Have Known Better, songs that had been rejected by record labels for years but finally found their audience.
Hold on to the night. And I remember how you loved me. Should've known better than to fall in love.
The success exceeded all expectations. The album not only went triple platinum but also crossed genres, dominating both rock and pop charts, with an extra boost from MTV. But Richard didn't stop there. In 1989, he released Repeat Offender, avoiding the dreaded sophomore slump and providing he had staying power. With over 5 million copies sold, the album produced hits like Satisfied, Angelia, and Too Late to Say Goodbye. But the beautiful ballad Right Here Waiting captured the hearts of many.
Don't you know I won't give up until Angelia, it's too late to say goodbye. Wherever you go, whatever you do,
This song, my friends, has a special story. It was written as a love letter to his then-girlfriend and future wife, Cynthia Rhodes. During the filming of a movie in South Africa, Richard tried to visit her, but was denied a visa. That's when he poured his feelings into a song. Initially, he thought Right Here Waiting was too personal to record, so he offered it to Barbra Streisand, who had asked for a song. Richard shared more details on CBS's The Talk. I had to messenger the cassette tape of it to her. The next day she called me. I still have this voicemail, and it says, "Richard, I heard the song. It's a beautiful song. But I'm gonna need you to rewrite the lyrics because I'm not gonna be right here waiting for anyone." Richard humorously recalled that Barbara's rejection actually helped him. Those around him convinced him to record it himself. Reluctantly, he thought the ballad didn't fit the rock style of his album. Luckily, he gave in, because Right Here Waiting became one of the biggest hits of his career. Although Richard never repeated the level of success of Repeat Offender, his next 2 albums, Rush Street 1991 and Paid Vacation 1994, both achieved platinum status, each producing top 10 hits. Hazard reached number 9 on the charts, while Now and Forever climbed to number 7.
think about my life gone by, how it's done me right. Keep coming back to you, babe. Let me tell you about the way she loved me. Ooh, all the way. Now and forever. But I wasn't ready to fly. I can't keep you
as he began to fade from the pop charts, Richard continued his journey as a songwriter for other artists. In 2000, he wrote and produced This I Promise You for NSYNC, which reached number 5 on the charts.
This I promise you.
And in 2007, Keith Urban's Everybody, also co-written by Richard, repeated that success. But perhaps one of the most significant moments of his career was his partnership with Luther Vandross. Together, they wrote Dance with My Father, a touching tribute to Luther's father, which also deeply resonated with Richard, who had lost his own father in 1997. The song moved the world and earned the duo the Grammy Award for Song of the Year in 2003.
Dance with my father again.
At the Grammy ceremony, Luther was too ill to attend, and Celine Dion performed the song while Richard accompanied her on the piano. Although the performance fell short of expectations, the power of the song spoke for itself, cementing a friendship and a golden partnership.
To dance with my father.
Over the years, Richard has also worked with other artists like Josh Groban, Vince Gill, Keith Urban, and Toni Braxton, building an enviable songwriting portfolio. After a career marked by huge successes in the 80s and 90s, Richard remains an iconic name. However, as he reveals in his book Stories to Tell, a memoir, released in 2021, his life turned out to be quite different from the rock and roll lifestyle many might imagine. Richard was never drawn to the excesses of rock. He never wanted to disappoint his parents, as himself says, he simply doesn't have a personality prone to addictions. Throughout his career, while many of his industry friends appeared in tabloids for parties and scandals, Richard took a quieter path. He even jokes that his personal life is far from exciting enough to make sensational headlines. He was also in a serious relationship. In the 80s, he met the actress and dancer Cynthia Rhodes, famous for her role in Dirty Dancing, and the two married in 1989, staying together until 2014. The couple had 3 children, and despite their separation, Richard kept his private life out of the spotlight. Perhaps the closest thing to a scandal in Richard's career was a disagreement in 1990 with the MTV host Adam Curry during a radio interview. It all started when Adam made a joke about Richard, claiming he lost his temper and destroyed his tour bus after being delayed at the Canadian border, almost jeopardizing the show. The host compared this behavior to that of Doogie Howser, a young and innocent TV character. He said, "Richard Marx destroying a bus is like Doogie Howser having a meltdown." Hearing about the joke through friends, Richard confronted Adam, who denied making the comment. Tensions rose, and after an exchange of insults, Richard abruptly left the show. Another much more intense event in his career took place in Taiwan in 1989. During a tour, a storm delayed his show, and the event sponsor, who happened to be a leader of the Chinese mafia, was furious. Richard and his team were kept under watch by armed men, creating a terrifying atmosphere. In his book, he recalls, "I had my first flash of a real fear of being shot by these crazy people, of never seeing my family again, and never holding my first child. I knew I needed to stay calm and focus on figuring out a plan." Fortunately, he managed to stay calm and overcome the situation. In recent years, Richard has also become a notable presence on X, where he shares his political views and jokes about himself. When a father tweeted that his son had heard "Right Here Waiting" for the first time, Richard humorously responded, "How did the rest of the dentist appointment go?" But perhaps the most curious chapter in our idol's recent life is his relationship with the former MTV VJ Daisy Fuentes. He remembers first seeing Daisy in the 90s and being struck by her beauty and presence. Years later, in 2013, the two started exchanging jokes on X, and a direct message led to romance. They got married in 2015. In 2019, Richard revealed details about a mysterious illness that struck him twice over the course of 13 months. He suffered from severe seizures, fevers, and debilitating chills, with no clear diagnosis. Even after numerous tests, The only explanation was fever of unknown origin. The uncertainty about his health brought moments of fear, especially when he thought he might die. Despite the challenges, Richard remains strong. At 60, he still faces disrespectful comments from people who consider him a one-hit wonder. He admits that it bothers him, but responds calmly, "Yeah, so what?" After all, who else can say they wrote 14 songs that reached #1 as both a solo artist and songwriter? Today, Richard is at peace with his legacy. He continues to release music, with his most recent album, Songwriter, in 2022, where he explores 4 different styles: pop, rock, country and ballads. And so, with a solid career, a balanced life, and a new phase full of love, Richard Marx continues to walk his path, always staying true to himself and his passion for music. So, did you enjoy today's video? Did you already know Richard Marx's story? Let me know in the comments what your favorite song by this icon is. I'd love to read your thoughts. And don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with that music-loving friend. Thanks for sticking with me until the end, and see you in the next video.